The $1,500 bottle of Bordeaux sat untouched on white linen. Condensation slid down the crystal like tears, pooling on the starched tablecloth in small, quiet circles. Serafina Valdez watched the droplets form and fall, a rhythm more predictable than any human being had proven to be tonight. She checked her phone for the 47th time. The screen glowed back at her, empty of messages, empty of excuses, empty of the apology she knew would never come. Another blind date who had fled before dessert, before appetizers, before even laying eyes on her in person. $11.2 billion, she thought, the bitterness settling into her chest like something swallowed wrong. $11.2 billion. And I cannot buy a single evening where someone sees me as human. The other diners at Lumiere moved through their meals with the easy grace of people who belonged. Couples leaned toward each other over candlelight. Business partners clinked glasses to deals well made. A table of women in their 50s laughed at something one of them had said, their joy spilling across the restaurant like music. Serafina sat alone. She had reserved this table 3 weeks ago, back when hope still felt reasonable. Back when her assistant Mira had insisted that this man was different, that he came from old money and older manners, that he would not be intimidated by a woman who had built an empire from nothing. Mira had been wrong. They were always wrong. A commotion near the entrance pulled Serafina from her spiral of self-pity. She looked up, grateful for any distraction from her own thoughts. A man in his early 30s stood negotiating with the hostess. He wore a blazer that had seen better decades, the elbows worn thin in that particular way that spoke of genuine use rather than fashionable distress. His dark hair was disheveled from real work, not product. His jaw carried the shadow of a day spent doing something more important than grooming. His hand gripped a smaller one. A girl, maybe 7, stood beside him. Her eyes were wide, taking in Lumiere's splendor with the unguarded wonder that only children possess. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow light across her upturned face. She wore a purple dress with a tulle skirt, clearly her finest, clearly chosen for this specific occasion. The father leaned toward the hostess, his voice carrying across the quiet foyer. "Just a quick dessert at the bar. Please, it's her birthday. I promised her the chocolate lava cake. She's been talking about it for months." The hostess shook her head with the practiced regret of someone who delivered disappointment professionally. Friday nights were booked solid. The bar was reserved for waiting guests, perhaps if they had called ahead. The little girl looked up at her father. Serafina watched, waiting for the tears. The tantrum. The public meltdown that would give the other diners something to whisper about over their wine. It never came. Instead, the child squeezed her father's hand and spoke with a clarity that cut straight through the ambient noise of conversation and clinking silverware. "It's okay, Daddy. We can try the bakery on Flatbush Avenue. They have chocolate cake, too. It's probably just as good." Something cracked inside Serafina. Something frozen for years under board meetings and billion-dollar decisions. Something she had forgotten she possessed. A child handling disappointment with more grace than executives twice her age. A child comforting her father when she was the one being denied her birthday wish. The words escaped Serafina's mouth before calculation could stop them, before strategy could intervene, before the CEO part of her brain could remind her of all the reasons this was unwise. "Excuse me?" The hostess turned. The father turned. The little girl turned, her wide eyes finding Serafina's face. "You can join me, please. My companion isn't coming, and the table is far too large for one person. It would be my honor to share it." The father hesitated. Pride flickered across his features. The particular pride of a man who had learned to provide for his daughter without charity, without pity, without the help of strangers in expensive restaurants. "We couldn't possibly intrude. Please." Serafina heard something in her own voice she barely recognized. Honesty. Need. I've been sitting here alone for 45 minutes, and I'm beginning to feel like the saddest woman in Manhattan. You would be doing me a kindness." The little girl tugged her father's hand. She had already made her decision. "Daddy, she looks lonely. We should help her." And just like that, the matter was settled. They crossed the restaurant together, drawing curious glances from other diners. The father walked with the careful dignity of someone who knew he did not quite belong in this world of white tablecloths and sommelier recommendations. The daughter practically skipped, her tulle skirt bouncing with each step. Serafina pulled out a chair for the child before the waiter could intervene. "I'm Sarah." The nickname slipped out before she could catch it, the name she had not used since college, the name that belonged to a younger version of herself, before Valdez energy, before the billions, before the loneliness. Callum Mercer. The handshake was firm, honest. She felt calluses against her palm, evidence of work beyond keyboards, beyond boardrooms, beyond the soft-handed world she had inhabited for too long. "And this is my daughter, Wren." "Wren." Serafina smiled at the child. "Like the bird." "Like the bird," Wren confirmed solemnly. "My mommy picked my name before she went to heaven. She said wrens are small, but they have big songs." Serafina felt her throat tighten. She looked at Callum, saw the old grief living quietly behind his eyes. "She sounds like she was very wise," Serafina said carefully. "She was the wisest," Wren agreed. "Daddy says I got her brains and her stubbornness. He says it like it's a bad thing, but I can tell he doesn't mean it." Callum laughed, the sound genuine and unpracticed. "You're too observant for your own good, little bird." The waiter appeared with menus. Wren studied hers with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts, her small finger tracing down the list of desserts until she found her quarry. "The chocolate lava cake," she announced. "Please and thank you." "And for dinner?" Serafina asked. Wren's eyes grew even wider, if such a thing were possible. "We're allowed to have dinner too. It's your birthday. You're allowed to have whatever you want." When Wren's mac and cheese arrived, shaped into tiny stars by some kitchen artist who understood magic, the child clapped her hands together with pure joy. "Look, Daddy, they're sparkly. The cheese is sparkly." Callum caught Serafina's eye over his daughter's head, and something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the quiet acknowledgement that they were both exactly where they needed to be. Over dinner, Serafina learned that Callum taught English literature at Lincoln High School in Brooklyn, that he coached the wrestling team on weekends, that he had been a corporate lawyer once in another life before everything changed. "I couldn't stay in that world after losing Isadora," he explained, watching Wren color on her children's menu with the crayons the waiter had provided. All those billable hours felt meaningless. Contracts, mergers, men in expensive suits lying to each other with very precise language. "I went home one night, looked at Wren sleeping in her crib, and realized I didn't want to be the kind of man who missed her entire childhood for a corner office." "So you became a teacher." "I went back to what I loved. Literature, ideas, young people who still believe the world can be different." He shrugged, almost embarrassed. "It doesn't pay much, but I'm there when she wakes up. I'm there when she goes to sleep. I'm there." "She's remarkable," Serafina said, meaning it completely. "That thing she said to the hostess about the bakery. Most adults can't handle disappointment that gracefully." Callum's smile was soft with memory. Isadora always quoted Hemingway, "Grace under pressure." She said it was the only kind worth having. Somehow Wren picked it up. "I don't know how. She was only a few hours old when—" He stopped, swallowed. "When Isadora left us." "Complications?" Serafina asked gently. "The hospital's word for things they couldn't explain. One minute she was holding Wren, laughing about how much hair she had. The next minute," he shook his head, "7 years and I still don't have language for it." Serafina reached across the table without thinking, her hand covering his. He did not pull away. I'm so sorry. Don't be. We had 7 years of loving each other. Some people never get that. And she gave me Ren. He looked at his daughter, still coloring, tongue poking out in concentration. She gave me everything. The birthday cake arrived with a single candle and 3 waiters who had apparently decided to adopt this unlikely trio as their own. They sang. Serafina sang. Callum sang. Wren closed her eyes tight to make her wish, her small face scrunched with the effort of wanting something very badly. When she opened her eyes, she looked directly at Serafina. I'm not telling what I wished for, she announced solemnly. That's the rules, but it's about you, Sarah, and it's sparkly. Serafina felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back, reaching for her wine, buying herself a moment to find her voice. I'm honored to be in your wish, she managed. You should be, Wren said matter-of-factly. I only get one a year, and I wasted last year's on a pony. Daddy says we don't have room for a pony in Brooklyn. Outside Lumiere, the spring air wrapped around them like a benediction. The city smelled of possibility and blooming things. Serafina stood on the sidewalk, reluctant to call for her car, reluctant to end whatever this evening had become. Callum shifted his weight, his daughter's hand still in his. I know this is probably presumptuous, and you've already been incredibly generous, but maybe we could do this again. He hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his features. There's a playground in Central Park. Wren loves the swings. If you're free some weekend. Serafina should have said no, should have walked away before this became something impossible to untangle, before a teacher and his daughter discovered who she really was, before the billion-dollar lie of omission became too large to survive. I'd like that very much, she heard herself say. They exchanged numbers. She watched Callum program hers into his phone, watched the screen, saw him type a single word under her contact. Sarah, not Serafina Valdez, CEO, not the name that appeared in Forbes and Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal. Just Sarah, the woman who had shared chocolate cake with a 7-year-old on a Friday night. As she watched them walk away, Wren turning back twice to wave, Serafina's phone buzzed in her clutch. She pulled it out. Mira. Emergency. Thaddeus Ashford announced breakthrough in solid-state battery technology. Stock dipped 3%. Board wants you in the office Monday morning. The vultures are circling. Thaddeus. Of course. The name alone was enough to turn the sweet evening sour in her mouth. Thaddeus Ashford, the man who had shared her bed 8 years ago, when Valdez Energy was nothing but a dream and a prototype. The man who had held her through long nights of doubt, who had promised to believe in her vision when no one else would. The man who had walked away the moment that vision required actual faith. I can't hitch my future to your unrealistic ambitions, he had said, standing in the doorway of her tiny apartment in San Antonio, his bags already packed. You're brilliant, Serafina. But brilliant isn't enough. The market will eat you alive. She had proven him wrong, built everything he said was impossible. Turned her parents' dream, 2 Mexican immigrants who cleaned houses and saved every penny for their daughter's education, into an empire worth $11.2 billion. And Thaddeus had spent every moment since trying to destroy what she had built without him. Serafina looked down the street where Callum and Wren had disappeared around a corner, where normal life was still happening, where a father was probably carrying his tired daughter on his shoulders toward the subway. 2 worlds, she thought. 2 completely different worlds. And she was standing precisely at the collision point. Monday morning brought gray skies and a boardroom full of faces Serafina had learned to read like texts. 11 chairs arranged around the polished table. 11 sets of eyes that flickered toward her as she entered, cataloging her posture, her expression, searching for weakness. 2 of those faces avoided her gaze entirely. Phillips and Chen, old money, old loyalties, old willingness to be purchased by the highest bidder. Thaddeus got to them, she realized. Of course he did. Let's address it directly, she said, taking her seat at the head of the table. She did not sit down slowly, did not arrange her papers, did not give them time to mistake composure for uncertainty. Thaddeus Ashford's claims of ethical violations at Valdez Energy are fabricated. He has no evidence because there is no evidence. Phillips cleared his throat. He was a man who had inherited his board seat along with his family's shipping fortune. A man who measured worth in bloodlines rather than accomplishments. He's claiming documentation about the Patterson acquisition. Falsified environmental reports. The Patterson acquisition was clean. I personally oversaw every document, every signature, every assessment. Serafina let her gaze travel around the table, pausing just long enough on each face. If anyone in this room doubts my integrity, I invite them to say so now. Silence. I'll conduct an internal review to satisfy our fiduciary obligations. In the meantime, we proceed as planned. The Jensen project accelerates. Any other concerns? The meeting dissolved into the usual business. Budget allocations, quarterly projections, the comfortable language of commerce that Serafina could speak in her sleep. Afterward, Mira pulled her aside in the private corridor behind the boardroom. There's something else. Something I couldn't say in there. Mira Okonkwo had been Serafina's assistant for 6 years, her confidant, her translator between the person she was and the person she presented to the world. If Mira looked worried, there was reason to be worried. Tell me. Thaddeus has been surveilling you. He's had a private investigator following you for 3 months. Photographs, locations, times. He knows about the restaurant Friday night, the teacher and his daughter. Serafina's blood ran cold. For what purpose? Leverage. Mira handed her a folder. Inside were photographs. Serafina at Lumiere, laughing at something Wren had said. Serafina in Central Park the following day, pushing Wren on the swings while Callum watched from a bench. Serafina at the American Museum of Natural History, her hand in Callum's as they walked through the dinosaur exhibit. 3 months of moments. 3 months of happiness. Captured and cataloged by someone who meant to weaponize them. If you don't back off the Jensen project, Mira continued quietly, he threatens to leak everything. CEO abandons responsibilities for Brooklyn Romance. The business press would eat it alive. The board would have grounds to question your judgment. The stock would tank. He's blackmailing me. He's threatening to. There's a difference, and that difference is everything. Serafina stared at the photographs. In one of them, Wren was looking directly at the camera, her face lit up with the pure joy of a child who did not yet know that the world contained people who would photograph her happiness to destroy someone else's life. What are my options? You end the relationship, quietly, before he can use it against you, or you fight him publicly, and everything you built gets dragged through the tabloids. Your choice. But it wasn't really a choice at all. Over the following weeks, Serafina lived 2 lives. By day, she was the formidable CEO, the woman who had built a clean energy empire from nothing. She countered Thaddeus's moves with strategic brilliance, securing new patents, locking down supply chains, giving the board no reason to doubt her focus. By evening, she was Sarah, the woman who helped Wren with homework at the kitchen table in Callum's cramped Brooklyn apartment, who discussed Baldwin and Hemingway and Morrison with a man who still believed that literature could save the world, who felt human for the first time in years. You're different from anyone I've met, Callum told her one evening, their hands intertwined on his worn couch while Wren slept in the next room. Most people perform their lives. They're always playing a role, always calculating their next move. You just exist, authentically. It's like you have nothing to prove. If only you knew, Serafina thought, guilt churning in her stomach. I am performing more than anyone you have ever met. I'm just me. she said instead. Nothing special. You're wrong about that. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Ren adores you, and Ren has excellent taste in people. She gets that from her mother. Week 6 brought their first kiss. They were standing in his kitchen, washing dishes together like some ordinary couple with an ordinary life. And he had turned to hand her a plate, and somehow the plate was forgotten, set down with too much noise, and his mouth was on hers and she was kissing him back with a desperation she had not known she possessed. When they finally separated, breathless, he smiled that honest smile. I should tell you something. I looked you up online. Her heart stopped. She felt the blood drain from her face, felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Found nothing. He laughed at her expression. Don't look so worried. I just mean there's no social media, no LinkedIn, no Facebook, nothing. It's like you don't exist digitally. You're a ghost. Relief flooded through her, so intense it made her dizzy. Her team was thorough. Every trace of Serafina Valdez's personal life had been scrubbed from the accessible internet years ago. Too many stalkers, too many obsessive investors, too many people who wanted pieces of her they had no right to take. I'm not big on social media, she managed. Bad experiences in the past. It's refreshing, actually. Everyone I know is constantly performing their life online, curating their existence for strangers. You're just here, present, real. He kissed her again, and Serafina let herself believe this could work. Let herself imagine a future where the lie of omission faded away, where she found the right moment to tell him the truth, where he loved her enough to understand why she had hidden. She should have known better. 3 months into their relationship, on a Saturday at the American Museum of Natural History, everything nearly fell apart. Ren ran ahead through the dinosaur exhibits, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings as she announced the names of every species she recognized. Callum and Serafina followed hand in hand, moving at the pace of people who had nowhere else to be. Then she saw him, Charles Winthrop, major investor, board member emeritus, walking toward them with his grandchildren in tow, his face already breaking into the smile of recognition. Callum. Serafina kept her voice even with tremendous effort. Take Ren to the water fountain. Please, right now. He looked at her, confused, hurt by her tone, but he saw something in her face that stopped his questions. Come on, little bird. Let's get some water. They disappeared around a corner just as Charles reached her. Serafina, what a delightful surprise. Here with family. Charles, lovely to see you. Research, actually. Educational initiatives the company is considering. Give my best to Margaret. She steered him away with practiced efficiency, asking about his grandchildren, his golf game, anything to keep him moving in the opposite direction from where Callum and Ren had gone. By the time he finally departed with promises to schedule lunch, her heart was pounding so hard she thought she might be sick. When Callum returned, Ren skipping ahead to examine a triceratops skull, his expression had changed. Watchful, careful. Friend of yours? Just someone from work. The half-truth tasted like poison on her tongue. You seemed afraid of him. Not afraid, just surprised. He's a difficult client. I wasn't prepared. Callum nodded slowly. She could see him filing the moment away, adding it to a collection of inconsistencies that had begun to accumulate. The emergency phone calls, the unexplained absences, the way she sometimes spoke with authority that seemed at odds with her claimed position as an investment analyst. He was too intelligent not to notice. She had been foolish to think otherwise. The Singapore crisis came on a Wednesday morning. Serafina was sitting at Callum's kitchen table, drinking coffee and listening to Ren explain her science fair project in exhaustive detail. The volcano she had built from papier-mâché, the baking soda and vinegar reaction she would demonstrate, The poster she had made with facts about actual volcanic eruptions around the world. And Daddy helped me with the spelling, but I did all the painting myself. And I used red and orange and yellow because those are lava colors. And Mrs. Patterson said I could present right after lunch because I asked first. Serafina's secure phone buzzed. The emergency code. She glanced at the screen, and her stomach dropped. Factory fire in Taiwan. 30% of component production destroyed. Supply chain compromised. Board assembling in 30 minutes. Multiple international calls required. Crisis management team activated. I have to go. The words came out too fast, too sharp. Right now. I'm so sorry. Your volcano is on Friday, Ren said quietly. Not accusatory, just stating fact. You said you would come. Serafina knelt to the child's level, her heart breaking. I know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Something happened at work. An emergency. I promise I'll make it up to you. Ren's eyes held something too old for seven, too knowing, the look of a child who had learned early that adults made promises they could not keep. That's okay, Sarah. People have important things. I understand. The grace in that small voice nearly undid her. She kissed Ren's forehead, grabbed her bag, and fled. 12 days in Singapore. Endless meetings in conference rooms that all looked the same. Video calls at 3 in the morning. Insurance negotiations. Supplier contracts. The 1,000 small decisions required to save a company from disaster. When Serafina finally returned to New York, exhausted to her bones, Callum was waiting, not with relief, not with the embrace she desperately needed, with questions. Investment analysts don't have emergency codes. His voice was calm, measured, the voice he probably used with students who had disappointed him. They don't have private jets. They don't disappear to Singapore for almost 2 weeks while the woman they're supposedly dating watches on television as the CEO of Valdez Energy handles a manufacturing crisis. Serafina closed her eyes. Who are you really? She took a breath. 12 days of sleepless nights had worn down her defenses. She had no strength left for lies. I'm the founder and CEO of Valdez Energy Solutions. Silence. The Valdez Energy, the billion-dollar company. 11.2 billion. His laugh was hollow, pained, the sound of something breaking. You let me pay for coffee, leave tips like I was contributing something meaningful. Let me believe I knew you. Let me tell you about my dead wife, my fears, my hopes, like I was confiding in an equal instead of performing for a woman who could buy my entire building. I wanted you to see me, not my money. Lies of omission are still lies. His English teacher precision cut deep. I teach high school juniors about truth, about the difference between what we say and what we don't say, about how silence can deceive as completely as words, and the woman I thought I loved has been lying to me since we met. Before Serafina could respond, before she could find the words to explain or apologize or beg, Ren appeared in the doorway, pajamas with tiny dinosaurs, hair still mussed from sleep. Is Sarah leaving again? Callum softened instantly, the anger draining from his posture. We're just talking, sweetheart. Go back to bed. But Ren did not go back to bed. She walked straight to Serafina and took her hand. I don't care if you're rich. Her voice was clear, certain, unburdened by the complexities that tangled the adult world. You're still sparkly on the inside. That part was real, I can tell. 3 days of burying herself in work, 3 days of sleeping on the couch in her office, 3 days of avoiding the photographs on her desk, Ren at the science fair, Callum laughing at something she had said, the three of them in Central Park looking like a family. Mira found her at 2 in the morning, still staring at spreadsheets that had long since ceased to make sense. Thaddeus is making his move. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. He's presenting his evidence of your distraction, every photograph of you with Callum and Ren, every location, every date for 3 months. He's calling it a pattern of negligence. He's demanding you step down from the Jensen project, or he releases everything to the press. That's surveillance. That's blackmail. That's illegal. It's leverage, Mira said quietly. If you don't step down, he leaks everything. Ice Queen melts for Brooklyn teacher will be the headline. The tabloids will dig into Callum's past, Ren's school, every moment of their private lives. Serafina stared at Manhattan's glittering skyline through her office window. A city of ambition and compromise. A city that rewarded ruthlessness and punished sentiment. She could fight Thaddeus in the boardroom. Win, probably. She had fought harder battles with longer odds. She could protect her company. But at what cost? Her phone buzzed. A text from Callum's number. Ren won first place at the science fair. She wanted you to know. Attached, a photograph of Ren holding her blue ribbon, beaming at the camera with uncomplicated joy. Behind her, visible over her shoulder, was a handwritten sign. For Sarah, even though she's busy saving the world. Serafina made her decision. The emergency board meeting convened at 9 the following morning. 11 faces around the polished table. Thaddeus sat at the far end, smug confidence radiating from his expensive suit like cologne. Before we proceed with Mr. Ashford's proposal, Serafina said, standing, I have evidence to present. She activated the screen behind her. Documents appeared. Financial transfers from Ashford Technologies to a shell company. Surveillance photographs, not of her, but of the private investigator Thaddeus had hired. Recordings of conversations in which Thaddeus explicitly discussed his blackmail strategy with his COO. Thaddeus Ashford did not approach this board with a legitimate business proposal. He came with blackmail, corporate espionage, and fabricated evidence designed to force my resignation. She clicked to the next slide. What Mr. Ashford failed to understand is that his private investigator has been cooperating with federal authorities for 6 months, part of a broader investigation into securities fraud at Ashford Technologies. Every instruction Thaddeus gave him was recorded. Every payment was documented. Every threat was logged. The boardroom door opened. 2 FBI agents entered with the measured pace of people who had done this many times before. Thaddeus Ashford, you're under arrest for blackmail, corporate espionage, and securities fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The color drained from Thaddeus's face. He stood as the agents approached, his mouth working soundlessly. His perfect confidence crumbling like something rotten exposed to air. You think you've won? His voice was thin, desperate, stripped of its usual polish. That family you're building, you'll choose the company every time. You're just like me. Serafina met his gaze without flinching. That's where you're wrong, Thaddeus. You taught me exactly what happens when you choose ambition over people. When you walk away from someone because their dreams seem inconvenient. I learned from your mistake. You never did. She watched them lead him away. Watched the boardroom door close behind him. Watched the other board members avoid each other's eyes, recalculating their positions, adjusting their loyalties. Phillips and Chen would be dealt with later. Quietly, professionally, the way she handled all threats to what she had built. But that was for another day. Today she had somewhere more important to be. Saturday afternoon, the same playground in Central Park where they had first begun to build something together. Serafina arrived alone. No driver, no security, no armor of position and power. Just herself in jeans and a sweater, looking like any other woman in the city. She spotted them immediately, Callum pushing Ren on the swings, the child's laughter carrying across the autumn air. Ren saw her first. Sarah! She launched herself from the swing, crossing the playground at a run, crashing into Serafina's arms with the force of a child who had been waiting. "You came back. Did you tell the bad man to stop being mean?" Serafina knelt, embracing the little girl, breathing in the scent of playground and sunshine and hope. "I did. And this time, he can't hurt anyone ever again." Callum approached slowly. His expression was careful, guarded, the expression of a man who had been hurt and was bracing for more. "Mira sent me everything." His voice was quiet, meant only for her. The surveillance, the blackmail, what Thaddeus tried to do, how you stopped him. Serafina nodded, preparing for rejection, preparing for the conversation where he explained that he could not trust her, that too much had happened, that some wounds did not heal. "You could have protected yourself," Callum continued, "kept it quiet, handled it in the shadows the way people in your world handle everything. Instead, you let it go public. Let everyone know about us, about me, about Ren." "Yes. Why?" She took a breath. This was the moment, the only moment that mattered. Because hiding was what got us here. Because you and Ren deserve someone who fights in the open, not someone who manages problems in the shadows like they're embarrassed. She met his eyes, letting him see everything she had tried to protect him from. "Because I love you both, and I am done pretending that's a weakness." Silence stretched between them. The sounds of other families playing filled the air. Children laughing, parents calling, the normal music of normal lives. Then Callum stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. "Isadora would have liked you," he whispered against her hair. "She always said real courage was being honest when it cost you something." 4 months later, autumn had deepened into winter, the city transformed by cold and light. Serafina's mansion in the Upper East Side, a property she had purchased years ago to prove she belonged in rooms that once would have refused her entry, had undergone its own transformation. Ren's artwork covered the walls of the library. Callum's books filled shelves that had stood empty for years. The kitchen, once a showpiece for caterers, now smelled of actual cooking. The garden glowed with fairy lights Ren had helped string. A small table was set for 3, star-shaped pasta and chocolate lava cake. "I wanted to ask you and your dad something important," Serafina said, kneeling to Ren's level. "Would you consider moving in here? Making this your home too?" Ren's eyes went wide. "Like a real family, with breakfast every day and bedtime stories and someone to help me study vocabulary?" "All of that. Everything." Callum stepped forward, his expression a complicated mixture of hope and hesitation. "Why here? Why not us offering you space in our world?" Serafina had anticipated this, had prepared for it. "Your apartment is near Ren's school, your work, the community you've built there, the neighbors who bring soup when someone's sick, the bodega where they know your orders. Those connections matter." She gestured to the mansion around them. "This place was just a house I bought to prove something to people I don't even respect. It only started feeling like home when you two began spending time here." She took his hands. "I'm not asking you to join my world. I'm asking if we can build something new together, something that belongs to all 3 of us." Ren tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, say yes. Sarah has a garden, and her house is sparkly, and my room here could fit 3 of my room in Brooklyn." Callum laughed despite himself. The sound was warm, real, unguarded. "You realize she's going to be impossible now." "Is that a yes?" He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. Inside, a ring. Simple, elegant, not ostentatious. A ring chosen by a man who paid attention to what she actually wanted rather than what he thought she should have. "I was going to wait, but if we're making big decisions tonight," he knelt. "Sarah, Serafina, whatever name you're using, will you marry us?" Ren giggled. "Daddy, you're supposed to say marry me, not marry us." "No," Serafina said, tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking with joy. He got it exactly right. Yes. To both of you, to all of it. Yes. 1 year later, the charity gala buzzed with Manhattan's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos that cost more than most people's cars. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes. Photographers captured moments for society pages that would run in the morning papers. Serafina stood at the podium, looking out at a room full of people she had spent years impressing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to present the first annual Valdez Family Foundation Scholarship for single parents pursuing education while raising children, for people who are told every day that they have to choose between their dreams and their families, for people like my parents who cleaned houses and saved every penny so their daughter could go to college. In the audience, Callum sat with 8-year-old Ren on his lap. The little girl wore a dress she had chosen herself, purple with sparkles. Around her neck hung a locket that had belonged to her mother, entrusted to her on the first anniversary of the family they had built. This scholarship exists because someone taught me that success means nothing without people to share it with, that the most important deals aren't made in boardrooms. They're made over chocolate cake and star-shaped pasta, over homework at kitchen tables, over conversations about dinosaurs and volcanoes and the names of birds. She met Callum's eyes across the ballroom. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, a 7-year-old teaches you that it's okay to leave behind the things that don't matter, so you can hold on to the things that do. Applause filled the room. Serafina stepped down from the podium, making her way through a sea of congratulations to where her family waited. Later, in a quiet corner, Ren finally asleep on Callum's shoulder. I have something to tell you, Serafina said softly. Callum's eyes searched her face. Good something or bad something? She took his free hand and placed it on her stomach. Sparkly something. His expression shifted. Confusion, understanding, joy breaking across his features like sunrise. Ren's going to be impossible, he whispered. Ren's going to be the best big sister in the world. She leaned into him, their sleeping daughter between them, their future growing inside her. Outside, Manhattan glittered with a million lights. Inside, 3 people, soon to be 4, held each other in the quiet corner of a crowded room. Serafina thought about that first night at Lumiere. The stood-up billionaire drinking alone, the hopeful father negotiating with a hostess, the little girl in the purple dress who had said, with all the wisdom of 7 years, "It's okay, Daddy, we can try the bakery." They hadn't tried the bakery. They hadn't left. They had found each other instead. And that, Serafina thought, was the most sparkly thing of all.